Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my co-host Cindy.
Hello, JC.
Hi, Cindy. This week we've got an extra episode for Halloween. We're going to be talking about bats. I'm going to share a couple haunted hardware stores that you can go to, and a couple interesting podcasts that have horror stories.
Spooky.
I want to thank Beatbox Han. He's a hip-hop artist from South Wales. He provided the spooky music. He took some of his beats and slowed them down to create a haunted effect, and then we'll end the show with some of his work.
Where can you find him?
You can find Beatbox Han on Facebook, and he also does jobs on Fiverr.
How do you spell his name?
It's Beatbox and then Hann. I love the spelling.
I know. Are we talking about bats just because it's a Halloween episode?
And they're spooky.
Or are they actually a problem for homeowners?
So one interesting thing about bats is many species, especially here in the United States, they will hibernate during the winter, and they're looking for somewhere to find shelter. So attics are just a very easy place to be protected. And once a bat sets up camp and they give birth and they start a colony, the bats will actually keep returning to that place. You know what's interesting about a hibernating bat?
Nope.
On average, they breathe about 200 times a minute. When they go into hibernation, that reduces to 20 times a minute.
Wow.
And their heart rate is around 500 times a minute when they're active. And when they're hibernating, that reduces down to 10 times a minute. So what a dramatic slowdown. Scientists have analyzed their body makeup, and because they can reduce all of this activity in their body, many species live 20 years, and there's a couple species that live up to 30 years.
Wow, that's crazy.
And they believe that's just because they're able to slow down their metabolism, less wear and tear on their body.
Too bad we can't hibernate.
Yeah, really.
Where are bats a problem in the country?
So in the U.S., you'll find them in every state, and in fact, you'll find them throughout most of the world. They're the second largest group of mammals, and they represent about 20% of all mammals. Most bats will eat insects. I think it was like 70% of bats will eat insects, and then there's a couple specialized types of bats.
Like what?
So you've got vampire bats, which are in Central and South America and Mexico, and they're very small, almost the size of a mouse, but they have a 15-inch wingspan.
Wow. And
they primarily are drinking the blood from horses and cattle. Every time they drink, they're actually going to take about an ounce of blood, which is quite a bit. It's funny, they've got the fangs, they got a wild face and really interesting looking ears, and they have very few teeth because they have a liquid diet. They have a heat sensor, so what they do is they'll see a sleeping animal, they'll fly down next to it, and they'll actually walk up to it slowly, kind of sneak up on it, and they have a heat sensor in their nose, and so they find a vein. So they can track it down, and then their razor-sharp teeth, they slit open the skin, and then they lap up the blood, kind of like a kitten would drink.
That's not a nice visual.
So very, very interesting. They actually have an anticoagulant in their saliva that's being studied by scientists for preventing blood clots in heart patients. They say it's so effective and so unique that they think they're really going to be able to benefit from analyzing this. And then another interesting bat, especially since this is our Halloween episode, are cannibal bats.
Uh-oh.
And these are in South America, and they eat meat. They track down birds and knock them out of the air. They'll eat frogs and lizards, mice, and then they'll eat their own.
Yeah, nice.
So some interesting stuff going on in South America.
How do you know if you have a bat problem?
So if you check your attic once in a while, you can see droppings because there's going to be...
Should you check your attic once in a while?
Yes, every responsible homeowner should check their attic once in a while.
I'm
just
pretty
to check
sure
for...
my dad hasn't been up there in like 15 years.
I'll have to help him out. But you should get up there and check for leaks and, different, just to see whether there's a problem. One of them being bats. You'll see they tend to roost, so, most of the species actually hang upside down, like you see in the movies. It's pretty cool, and they wrap their wings around them. they'll have all these droppings, mounds of the droppings, and the accumulation of this waste can actually cause odor and attract bugs, and also, you can have different diseases from that.
That's
and then
gross.
the accumulation of their urine, it creates these salts. And in attics where you have bats that are roosting for long periods, you'll see these stalactites and stalagmites of urine.
Eh.
So, just an easy way is to check your attic once a year. Then you
What
can
do you do if you find a bat in your attic?
Well, that's what we'll get into. We're bat removal. So, and we want to do it humanely because bats are fantastic for the environment. So bats are eating thousands of mosquitoes every night. And a couple scientists were watching with high-speed cameras. They watched one bat for 15 minutes, caught and ate 175 mosquitoes.
Wow.
And then many species are eating these crop-destroying insects, so it really helps farmers. There's many bats that actually pollinate
Oh, I didn't know that.
different plants, nuts, fruits. And then in South America, there's a couple of different bats, like the giant fruit bats, that they eat this fruit, and as they defecate all around the forest, they're moving these seeds that are very healthy for the environment.
How do bats get inside your house?
So believe it or not, especially in the U.S., most species are pretty small. They're about the size of a mouse, the main body without the wings, and they can get into a hole about the size of a thumb.
Ugh.
So if they can get their head into it, they can wriggle the rest of their body and their wings into this hole. And primarily they're getting into your house late fall, just before winter. They're trying to find some place to set up shelter. And if you have any openings around your house, so if you have vents or if you have any openings near your chimney and your roof, so all of these places we should be looking once a year in the fall when we're insulating our home and getting it winterized for the winter. These are all the spots that we've got to look at so that we don't have a problem in our attic with bats.
Do they ever get into the main part of your house?
So not very often, but a couple of the websites I was looking at with these exterminators, what happens sometimes in winter when they're hibernating, they'll actually wake up sometimes once or twice a year looking for water, and they're very groggy. They have incredible ability to sense the difference between heat and cold. So if there's any access into your home, let's say from an interior wall where there's a hole or a crack, they can get up into the attic. They'll work their way down into your house, and now you've got a bat inside your house.
Let the screaming begin.
Yeah, happy Halloween. So it's very important that you treat it seriously because bats do carry rabies. Very few.
What percentage?
Only about 1%, they say. And I've looked at the CDC. There's only been a handful of cases in recent history, but they are one of the carriers of rabies. And so, you have to treat it as if they have rabies if you do have a bat in your house. And you're going to want to catch it, open all the windows, the doors, and you try to get it out. You want to make sure that you don't get bit or scratched. If any animal has rabies, it's in their saliva. So if you have an open wound, or if any of that saliva gets into your eye or your mouth, or if they bite you, then you definitely get rabies. So you have to be very conscious. And if you're trying to get rid of this bat, let's say you have a bat and it just won't leave, you need to catch it, and you need to be wearing rubber gloves. If you have a net, a fishing net or any type of netting, it's an easy way to grab it. Most people say that just a shoebox or like a plastic Tupperware bowl is an excellent way to catch them. Wait till they stop, because they're going to fly around, wait till they land, and then just walk very slowly up to it with the box. Let's say we're using a box as extended, and you want to move it over them very quickly. You want to come up from behind them if you can, is one of the tips. Sneak up on them was one of the tips. Wear thick rubber gloves, or thick leather gloves rather, and then even real thick winter gloves are excellent because they have very small teeth, but they will bite if they're cornered. So most health organizations suggest that you have a bat. If a bat is in your house, and especially if it was in the house and you have kids or pets, they suggest that you catch it, trap it, and have it tested. There was one case in 1995 where there was a 4-year-old that was sleeping, and I believe it was the aunt that said that there was a bat in the house. The family woke up, they found the bat, they grabbed it, and they got rid of it. They actually had it. and they got rid of it and never had it tested. And what happened was about a month later, that child died of rabies. And when they, when she was exhibiting all these symptoms, they ran her to the hospital, and she had rabies, and they actually couldn't save her.
Oh, that's terrible.
And they said that they had checked her. They didn't see any obvious scratches or bites. So most medical people recommend, if you do have a bat in your house and you can catch it, to definitely have it tested.
So if you find out you have bats in your attic,
okay,
how do you get rid of them?
So we want to create a one-way door so that they can get out of the attic. We don't want to trap them, and you never want to see, if you have or think you have bats, you never want to seal off or anything. And probably a good tip is, if you're doing all your winterization, let's say in fall, I would run into my attic and just give it a good once-over to make sure that there's no babies, because it's actually against the law to trap them and inside your attic. So you never want to evict them between May and August.
Why?
Because they have the babies in the attic and then they'll all die. So most states, and check your state restrictions, most states in the U.S., you can't evict a bat between May and August. You got to let them raise their young, and then after August, you want to create these one-way doors. So
you just have to kind of ignore the fact.
Deal, and they're cool. I mean, generally, you're not going to have a problem. And there's some government agencies that say, hey, it's not bad to have a bat colony, and they've got some other than having to get rabies shots.
Yeah,
but it's not bad to have a bat house in the yard. And in fact, if you do have bats in your attic, I would say get a bat house for them, because they're going to want to try to come back to where they had their colony, where they were roosting. So you can get a bat house, like at Home Depot. I looked at Ace, True Value, Do It Best. None of them carry bat houses. But
surprise.
But Home Depot actually has a bat house kit. So it's a nice project if you have kids. Like for $10, it has all the parts.
Here's the family of bats that we're raising.
But they do a great job
put it?
of getting insects, mosquitoes out of your yard. So you put it in a tree near your home, and so you evict them out of the attic and you give them a place to shelter. But what we're going to do is, before we seal up these holes, we're going to create these one-way doors, and you can actually buy a kit. It's about $25 online, and it's an actual pre-made one-way door, so they can get out, but they can't get back in. Most people, what they're going to do is one of two techniques. You're going to use a 1/4-inch poly netting, and so if you visualize a hole, you're going to take this netting around it, and you're going to make it about 2 feet square. You're going to either staple or use a real good duct tape. In fact, Gorilla Glue makes an excellent exterior tape. It's really sticky. It sticks to almost any surface, wood, concrete. It has a very thick glue pad so that it'll go into the cracks and crevices of masonry. But you're going to tape off. So around this hole, you're going to tape off the top and the 2 sides. And when the bat pushes itself out, it'll drop straight down and out, but then they can't get back in.
Okay.
So that's one way, and you can see it online if you look up how to make a bat one-way valve or a bat door.
We're not doing a video on this.
No, although we could. Well, once I check your dad's attic,
yeah.
we might be doing a video on our Fix It Home Improvement channel on YouTube. The other technique is to create a tube. So you get a 2-inch PVC tube, and you can go to the hardware store. They'll cut you like a 1-foot section. And so you've got 2-inch PVC, about 1 foot long, and then you're going to use a really good adhesive tape or some way to wedge it in there. A lot of the soffit and fascia around your house, sometimes the underside of the eaves will have these small holes where bats are coming in and out of. And you'll actually see most bats, now here in the U.S., have kind of an oily fur, and it will leave brown marks as they enter and exit that hole. So you can kind of see where they're coming out. And if you have one hole, it's very easy to do. If you have multiple holes, they actually recommend that you put these one-way doors over all of the holes until you know that all the bats are out of your attic. And so with a tube, what you're going to do is take this tube, and probably the easiest way would take some duct tape or that Gorilla Glue tape and tape it over that hole so that they can come out of that tube. But that PVC is so slick, if they try to fly back into it, they can't grab it and they can't get in. So especially if it's vertical, to, let's say, the underside of an eave. That's one way you could do it. I've seen a couple guys, what they do is they take that PVC, if it's coming horizontally, and then they'll take maybe about a foot-long piece of plastic, and they'll create a tube, so an extension. So you're wrapping this plastic over the end of the tube and creating a plastic tube so they can go out, but then it folds shut. And then they can't get back in. So that's really the trick of evicting bats. You want to do it when you can, according to your local codes. So May to August usually is not the time you can do it, but any other time you're going to create these one-way doors. They're going to leave the house and they're not able to get back in. And then you're going to want to just wait about a week or longer, and then you're going to keep checking the attic to make sure they're all out. Once they're all out, now we're going to completely seal up all these holes and entrances. And if you have gable vents or, nice wide open venting in your home, some homes, the construction, it's just wide open. You're going to definitely want to put up some type of hardware cloth or netting so that, especially like that one house that I bought, there were birds flying in and out. It was terrible. So you need to close all that up. You need to get, and most of these companies recommend a 1/4-inch netting is what you're looking for.
Is there anything else on bats?
So those are the basics. Look at
Other than I'm sure I'll be dreaming about that tonight.
Visit your attic once in a while. At least get up there once a year. And then if you've got a problem, just create a one-way door. Actually kind of simple. So for Halloween, if you're looking for some interesting podcasts, I've got a couple that I enjoy. The Attaboy Clarence Podcast. He does all those old-time movie reviews and also old-time radio. His episode 21, which is coming up, is going to be a universe of horrors.
Oh, spooky.
And all the old-time horror guys. So it should be a great episode. The NoSleep Podcast has ghost stories and horror stories. There's another podcast called The Horror, and there's one called Strange Tales. So if you're looking for some Halloween interesting, scary ghost stories, you can check those out. So I've got a couple haunted hardware stores.
Yippee.
In Huntsville, Alabama, they've got the Harrison Brothers Hardware Store. And they actually have a ghost walk. I spoke to Jackie Reeves. She runs it. And they actually do a real nice blend of history and entertainment. They have a real nice historic district. And she actually has a bunch of people who lead, I think it's 3 different tours all around the town. And, you visit all these haunted places. And they say that this hardware store is haunted. They have a ghost in the store that keeps kids out of the freight elevator.
Yeah. No, that's helpful.
That's a friendly ghost in that one. If you're near Willoughby, Ohio, they've got the Willoughby Coal and Supply Company, and this is a working hardware store. They've got 2 different ghosts that they see, plus a ghost dog.
No way.
So that's a fun place to shop.
What do those ghosts do?
They're just traditional, spooky. They say that they've got floating, glowing eyes. I guess one of the sheriff was in there. They said that there was, they heard sounds, so they got the sheriff. And when he went into the stock room after hours, there was just a pair of floating eyes. That was in his police report.
That's spooky.
So, a couple of hardware stores that you can go to for Halloween.
So I guess that wraps up this special Halloween episode.
You can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our home improvement videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
You could subscribe to that as well.
If you'd like to email us, you can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.